Okay, so get this, right?
Right.
There's this startup in China, and they
Uh-huh.
built an AI that can go toe-to-toe with Facebook's
Mhm.
in just 2 months.
Wow.
And get this, they did it on a tiny budget.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? And it all comes down to how they're using open source over there.
Hmm.
So today, we are going deep, deep, deep
Yeah.
into how China's becoming this like innovation powerhouse, particularly in AI.
Right.
And we'll look at the story of this startup called DeepSeek that's like shaking things up.
Yeah.
And we'll unpack how this whole open source approach is giving them a real edge. What do you think?
Sounds fascinating. You know, when we talk about China's rise in tech, this idea of knowledge spillover is key. Think about it.
Okay.
Silicon Valley, right? You've got all these brilliant minds, companies, ideas.
Well, crammed together, yeah.
Exactly. And that creates this explosion of innovation. But the US is super competitive. Companies guard their intellectual property, their secrets, really closely.
Yeah, it's like their secret sauce.
And sometimes that slows down the flow of knowledge, you know?
Yeah, totally. Everyone's playing their cards close to their chest. But China, they've flipped the script on knowledge sharing.
Mm-hmm.
They've got these things called industrial clusters, hundreds of them, each focused on a specific industry. It's like they've taken Silicon Valley and put it on steroids.
Yeah.
So paint me a picture. What do these clusters actually look like? What's happening there?
Imagine like specialized hubs, right? Hundreds of companies all focused on, say, AI or robotics. But it's not just companies. You've got suppliers, research institutions, universities, all crammed together, and they're constantly sharing knowledge. Like they have structured programs for it, regular forums where engineers and researchers just like get together and swap ideas. The government even has initiatives backing all this open source sharing. It's pretty wild.
So it's not about like crushing your competition. It's about this rising tide that lifts all boats.
Oh, exactly.
And then you've got DeepSeek, this startup that's making this mind-blowing AI.
Yeah.
And they did it way faster and way cheaper than anyone thought possible.
Right.
How did they do that? What's their secret?
Well, their secret is that, in a way, they didn't start from scratch. They leveraged the power of China's open source ecosystem.
Okay.
For example, they tapped into this open source library of pre-trained AI models.
Like AI models that were already built.
Exactly. Instead of starting from zero, they took one of these models, fine-tuned it for their specific needs,
Makes sense.
and boom, development time slashed.
Wow.
But get this, they did it all using older, cheaper chips.
What?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need the latest, most expensive tech to be at the cutting edge.
It's like they're saying you don't need the newest iPhone to be a genius, right?
Exactly.
And this has huge implications for AI. Imagine a future where AI is like the operating system for everything.
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 Yeah.
Our cars, healthcare, how we shop, you name it. China's approach could give them a huge head start. Even like the big tech giants didn't see this coming at first.
I mean, think about Eric Schmidt, right? Former CEO of Google.
Yeah, a company built on data and innovation.
He admitted flat out that he thought these restrictions on getting the latest chips would, slow China down.
Calm them down, yeah.
But then he had to eat his words.
Mm.
Companies like Alibaba, Tencent, they just like blew past everyone's expectations.
Real.
Embraced open source. And now they're developing AI faster and cheaper than anyone thought possible.
So they're not just copying, they're like innovating within constraints, right?
Totally. And that's a powerful skill.
Okay, but is there a downside to all this? I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, it's like anything. It's a double-edged sword, right? The collaboration is great, but if you rely too much on open source,
Go ahead.
you might stifle the truly groundbreaking stuff, the stuff that comes from taking risks, exploring the unknown.
Yeah, that makes sense. So could other countries just, like, copy China's model? Just embrace open source and, like, catch up?
It's not that simple, is it? I mean, it's not just about the tech itself. It's woven into China's whole economic and cultural fabric, the government support, the way these industrial clusters are structured. It's unique. Whether it would work elsewhere is a big question mark.
It's a big question mark. So what's the takeaway here? What should our listeners be thinking about?
Well, I think China's rise is a wake-up call. It shows what can happen when you collaborate, when you adapt, and when you, really challenge how things are supposed to be done.
So as our listeners dive deeper into AI, I want them to think about this. Could embracing open source unlock a whole new wave of innovation? Or are there hidden costs? I mean, it's a question worth pondering. It's a new world out there.
Absolutely.
And China's leading the charge.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to learn from them.
Oh, sure.